and welcome to Chapter 1. This week's Chapter 1, we are going to be reading from Grave as All Get Out, a Kenni Lowry mystery. It is a hard-boiled, cozy mystery that is got a little paranormal and a whole lot of thrill and a lot of cozy. Let's get to it. Chapter 1. I knew it was going to be a bad idea even before I knew. Why did I let you talk me into coming here? I looked at Papa, present in ghost form. He was here to protect me, the sheriff of Cottonwood. I ought to kick my own ass for giving in, I said. I was thoroughly regretting my decision to take my best friend Jolie Fisher and Katie Lee Hart up on going to see the psychic medium tonight. Not just any psychic medium, but Saraphina Moon, the psychic medium who had all of Cottonwood up in arms. Religious arms, moral arms, believing arms, hoping arms, just plain out wishing arms that someone that they would love would come from the great beyond, the big guy in the sky, to give them some peace right here on living earth. Papa gave me the aw shucks grin, the one that always got him out of trouble when he was alive. And now, as a ghost, it was still just as infuriating. Oh, Kenny Bug, Papa used his nickname he called me all my life. It's good for you to keep an eye on things, and if they don't seem a bit, out of the ordinary, he said. I felt like there was an underlying reason he'd yet to disclose. Besides, just think of all the people you can help if she does see some spirits. Well, let's say cold cases. I've had enough of cases over the last few years to last me a lifetime, I told him. I don't need any more cases, I sighed, and I looked out the windshield of my old Jeep Wagoneer, the same one Papa had driven for years. The beanbag coffee holder was still perched over the hump in the floorboard, and it cradled my coffee cup. You're the only ghost I want to handle, I finished. I picked up the coffee mug and putting it up to my lips, looking at Seraphina's moon house that loomed in front of us. It was an old Victorian that had seen better days, and tonight it was lit up like a Christmas tree, though we were still a few months out from Christmas. I mean, with the fairy twinkly lights all strung up all over the trees, and the crowd had gathered on the front of her lawn. Seraphina, a self-proclaimed psychic in town, was holding a public gathering to read ghosts, or so she claimed. It was the talk of the town, or at least had become the talk of the town due to Tavin Tidwell's public social media pages. You see, Tavin Tidwell had been a thorn in my side over the past few months. And now that he was running for a spot on the city council and had coerced one and my only deputy, now soon to be ex, Scott Lee, to run against me, Tavin and Scott were a 2-for-1 ticket. And well, we were in the Bible Belt, which meant people like Saraphina weren't exactly embraced with open arms. But there they were, gathered to see her work, supposed magic. Papa floated beside me, my deputy ghost, as we made our way towards the front of the porch where Saraphina had set up shop. You know, as well as I do, that woman is as fake as a $3 bill, Papa said, shaking his head. You said to give her a try, I muttered, more to myself than to him. Now you have your doubts, I harumphed. I'd heard from my best friends, who were now waving and pointing to the seat right up front that they'd saved me, how Saraphina had been creating quite the ruckus in Cottonwood, making our little community less than cozy and quite small southern town we'd become accustomed to. My friend Jolie Fisher was waving like a madwoman, her blonde hair bouncing in pigtails. She had the big, bright smile on her face, the one that could cheer anyone up no matter what. Jolie, she ran on the truck, a mobile cafe that kept everyone in town happy with its delicious coffee and snacks. And she was always in the middle of things, full of energy and always ready to help. Next to her was my friend Katie Lee. She was grinning from ear to ear. Katie looked as stylish as ever with her perfectly done hair and trendy outfit. She owned Shabby Trends, a boutique that everyone in town wanted to go to get their best looks. Katie Lee had a way of making everyone feel welcome, and whether they were shopping in her store or just stopping by for a chat, her friendly nature and warm heart made her a beloved figure in Cottonwood. Seeing them waving and smiling made me feel a lot better about being there. And no matter what trouble Seraphina Moon was stirring up, I knew I had Jolie and Katie Lee in my corner, especially when I saw Tavin Tidwell turn his phone around and move it as if he were following me. That son of a, Papa spouted when he noticed the very thing we didn't want. Tavin Tidwell filming me as he did his live event on one of his social media platforms. That had been his ammunition against me. Every time there was a call over the dispatch, somehow Tavin Tidwell beat me there. Yes, he had a police scanner like all the citizens of Cottonwood did, but it was the way of life around here, and the scanners was such a part of daily life as television had come to be. And seeing my friends waving and smiling made me feel a lot better about being there, even though I told them not to count me in on coming. No matter what trouble Seraphina Moo was stirring up in the community, I knew I had Jolie and Katie in my corner. And honestly, that's why I was there. I had heard all over town how Seraphina Moon had grown popular, a little too popular. She was reading people's minds from the great beyond, even getting people to do things they would normally never do, like sell family estate items to buy an RV, drive off into a sunset for a life on the road, and gave Miss Moon a donation. Now that smelled like a scam to me. Was it illegal? Probably not, but definitely immoral at best. And well, I sure did hate to see my town folks and friends get scammed by someone. Tavin took a deep breath and forced a smile as we moved through the crowd, which was a mix of eager believers and skeptical onlookers. I made my way to sit by Jolie and Katie. Don't you worry, Kenny Bug, Papa said with the big mischievous twinkle in his eyes. I've got this. Before I could say anything, Papa ghosted over to Tavin. I watched as Papa started to have a little bit of fun at Tavin's expense. He leaned in close to Tavin's ear and began blowing softly, just enough to ruffle Tavin's hair. Tavin swatted in the air, looking around in confusion. Papa wasn't done. He moved to Tavin's other side and started flicking his ears. Tavin's hands shot up to rub his ears, eyes darting around as if bugs had flown by, but no one else could see Papa. But Tavin's growing frustration was plain as day. Then Papa did the funniest thing ever. He floated right above Tavin and began to tap his nose repeatedly. Tavin kept wrinkling his nose and his face and crossing his eyes and looking down at his nose and started swatting at it like there was a persistent fly. The whole spectacle was so ridiculous, I had to stifle a laugh. Jolie and Katie looked over at me and their eyebrows were raised. What's so funny? Jolie whispered. Oh, nothing, I said, waving it off and trying to keep a straight face, just enjoying the show. That's what I said. Besides, what's the line for? I asked when I saw people were lined up and to take the heat off of while I was laughing. Oh, that's if you want to have a reading, or at least to hope to have a reading by Seraphina Moon tonight. Katie Lee practically bounced out of the summer dress she was wearing. She was so filled with excitement. I might have put in $100 bill. My voice hit a high note, and that was not expected to come out of me. I slammed my mouth shut and noticed Jolie gawking at me from behind Katie Lee, drawing a finger along her neck as if she were gesturing me to keep my big mouth shut. Well, I cleared my throat. I'm not sure how Rowdy would come through, I said. Rowdy Hart was Katie Lee's brother, who was murdered a few years ago. And though we did bring the killer to justice, it never lessened the loss, not only to the Hart family, but also our community. And Jolie was right. If this self-proclaimed medium could help Katie Lee just feel an inkling better, I was all for it. But I was still on high alert for the scam. That's what Tavin was here for, and no doubt happy to see that I'd at least heard of all the claims that he'd been spouting about me and how I'd let Cottonwood go to hell in a handbasket. Malarkey. Papa floated back over, a satisfied grin on his face. Well, that'll teach him to mess with my granddaughter, he said, clearly pleased with himself. A silence fell over the crowd, and all eyes focused on the house in front of us. Saraphina stood on the porch, a tall, willowy figure draped in a flowing purple robe. Her dark hair cascaded down over her shoulder, and she had a serene look. otherworldly look about her, but Papa's constant muttering about her theatrics kept me grounded. Welcome, everyone, Seraphina began, her voice smooth and melodic. Tonight we open the door to the other side. If there are any spirits among us, please make yourself known. She waved a couple of what looked like fancy stones in the air as she sucked in a deep breath or two. The stones she held were smooth and polished, glinting in the fairy lights strung around the porch. They caught the light and seemed to glow faintly, adding to the mystical atmosphere she was trying to create. Seraphina's long, slender fingers caressed the stones as she nodded her head. She closed her eyes in concentration. She opened her eyes and scanned the crowd, her gaze intense and penetrating. I feel a strong presence tonight, she said. A spirit who has been waiting for just this moment, her voice dropping in a whisper. The crowd leaned in, captivated by her performance. I couldn't help but notice the stones again and how she kept them close, almost like talismans. There was something about them that didn't sit right with me, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Papa floated beside me and muttered under his breath, She's a real piece of work, Kenny Bug. Those stones are nothing but cheap tricks. His large nose curled. She couldn't see a ghost if one danced a jig right in front of her, he snorted. And then he went to prove his point. Papa floated right on up to that porch and started doing the most ridiculous dance I've ever seen. He kicked his legs out and flailed his arms, looking like a ghostly scarecrow come to life. And then he added some crazy waving as if he was signaling a ship to come from the shore. The crowd remained transfixed on Seraphina, completely oblivious to Papa's antics. He floated back and forth, wiggling his hips, and even attempted to do the ghostly moonwalk. And I had to bite my lip because I was about to laugh out loud. But Seraphina, she continued. She closed her eyes. She swayed gently as if feeling this ethereal breeze. I sense a present, she intoned. A spirit, a strong, protective, and familiar. Papa didn't miss a beat. He leaned in close, making silly faces and waving his hands in front of her face, not even a twitch from Seraphina. Oh, come on, lady, Papa huffed. I'm right here. He started doing jumping jacks and then transitioned into another lively jig, complete with exaggerated arm movements and knee slapping. It was all I could do to hold it together. Jolie nudged me. Are you okay? She whispered with concern. Oh, yeah. I managed, stifling a chuckle. You see, no one could see Papa. Well, that's kind of a lie. Duke, my dog, could see Papa, but other than him, no one. And I never told anyone, not even my fiance, Finn Vincent. Over the last few years, I've been very careful when going out in public with Papa showing up. And tonight he was just too funny for me not to chuckle out loud a few times. I mean, I bit back a smile and glanced around, and the town folks, they were hanging on every word of Seraphina to even notice me, but their faces was a mix of hope and curiosity. And I spotted Betty Murphy, Cottonwood's most notorious gossip, as well as my dispatcher and secretary down at the sheriff's department, standing near the front, clutching her purse like it was a lifeline. If Seraphina managed to convince Betty, the whole town would be talking about it by morning. Seraphina's eyes snapped open and she pointed directly at me. You, she said, her voice suddenly sharp. You have a spirit with you, a guardian. The crowd turned to look at me and I felt a flush of rush creep up on my neck. Yeah, sure, I muttered, not bothering to hide my sarcasm. Papa floated alongside me as I made my way toward the front porch where Seraphina had set up shop. I see you, Kenny Lowry, Sheriff Kenny Lowry. Her voice carried over the murmurs of the crowd. Your grandfather, the former sheriff, is with you. He is so proud of you, the work you do for Cottonwood. I shot a glance at Papa, who was grinning ear to ear. Well, she's got that right, he said, puffing out his chest. But let's see what else she thinks and what else she thinks she knows. Seraphina then turned her long, pointy finger at Tavin Tidwell, who was still a busybody and filming me with his phone. And you, Tavin Tidwell, she intoned, her voice dripping with the theatrical seriousness. Your spirit side said that you need to be careful, that danger surrounds you. Papa chuckled beside me and said, If she only knew the half of it, he whispered. Protecting him? Now that's a laugh. Who's protecting him from the other side? The crowd buzzed with curiosity, their eyes darting between Tavin and Saraphina. Tavin lowered the phone slightly, looking a bit uneasy. Seraphina's gaze returned to me. The spirits tell me that your path is fraught with challenges. And Sheriff Lowry, if your grandfather's presence and guidance, you will overcome them. Papa rolled his eyes. She's landing on thick, isn't she? If she knew I was here, she'd be asking me for pointers. Tavin straightened up and turned his phone back towards me, his expression shifting to one of the righteous indignation. I'm here to see exactly what our sheriff is going to do about this heathen woman, he declared loudly, making sure everyone could hear. The good folks of Cottonwood don't like the likes of this woman here, and she is a scam. He turned his phone to show the crowd and then back to me, his eyes glinting with the challenge. Then over there, 9,000 people watching this live, he said, his voice dripping with a smug satisfaction. What do you have to say, Sheriff? I felt the weight of all those virtual eyes on me, waiting for my response. I squared my shoulders and I met Tavin's gaze head on. My job is to keep the peace and protect the people of Cottonwood, I said, my voice steady. And that's exactly what I intend to do. I don't tolerate scam or troublemakers here, but we also don't want to jump to conclusion without evidence. So are you saying you don't believe she's a scam? Tavin's smirk faltered slightly, but he quickly recovered. I'm not doing anything wrong on my property, Saraphina proclaimed. Did I force you to come here, Mr. Tidwell? Or you? She pointed to Jolie, who shook her head no. Or you? She pointed her head to Katie. No, I just wanted to see if you could connect with my brother, Katie said, taking the opportunity to see if Rowdy Hart was going to come through. Poor girl, Papa murmured, his voice soft with sadness. She sure does miss him so much. You might not be fooling some of these folks, but you might be fooling a lot more. But I for sure know you're not fooling me. Tavin, not one to be outdone, stepped forward, his voice taking a more menacing tone. And let me tell you, we don't take kindly to scams and lies here in Cottonwood. You best be careful, Saraphina. We don't need your kind causing trouble in our town. And that's why I'm backing Scott Lee as sheriff. And all of you should too. He would not let this type of evil infiltrate our town. His words hung in the air, heavy with implied threats. The crowd murmured uneasily, glancing between Tavin and Saraphina, and it was clear that there wasn't just about a psychic reading anymore. It was about something much deeper, a clash between beliefs and skepticism, and even Tavin was at the center of it all. I'm not here to cause trouble, Mr. Tidwell. Seraphina's serene smile wavered a fraction, but she quickly regained her composure. I'm here to help those who seek it. The spirit guide has guided me here, and I intend to fulfill my purpose. Papa had ghosted himself up on the porch and flailed in front of Seraphina. Yep, she's a fake. Papa came nose to nose with the professed medium, but she didn't seem to see him at all. And if she could see ghosts, she'd see me. Just remember, I'm watching you, and so are a lot of other people. Tavin's voice brought me back to the situation between him and Saraphina. He narrowed his eyes, his grip tightening on his phone. He glanced at me and then back at Saraphina as if daring either of us to challenge him before he shoved his phone into his pocket and stormed off, but not without smacking the folding chair in the back row where next to Lulu McLean was sitting. Watch it, Lulu snarled. I jumped to my feet when I noticed Tavin stopped short of her. He bent over, and though I couldn't hear what he was saying, I could see he was mouthing some spitting words that caught Lulu off guard. That wasn't easy to do. Looks like he's leaving, Jolie said, reaching up to touch my arm as though she went to have me sit back down. I cleared my throat and I did sit down, smiling at my girlfriends, who, though it was going to be a fun night, has turned out to be a little trauma. Now that unbeliever is gone, Saraphina began and smiled while she took another deep breath, appearing to recenter herself in the spirit world. She closed her eyes and swayed gently, her hands outstretched. I sense a spirit, a young male, she said, her voice soft. He has taken life too soon, his life cut short by a tragic event. Katie Lee's eyes widened, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of her seat and leaned forward. He worked in the graveyard, Seraphina continued, her eyes closed. He was devoted to his job, always making sure the grounds were well kept. His spirit is at peace, though he misses his loved ones dearly. Katie Lee nodded, her eyes misting over. This was exactly what her brother did before he died, and the words seemed to hit her hard. He wants you to know, Seraphina went on, that he is happy in the beyond. He feels your love and wants you to know that he watches over you every day. The crowd fell silent, hanging on her every word. But to me, the narrative was vague. It could apply to almost anyone who had lost a loved one. It was a perfect mix of common sense that people longed to hear, and everyone knew that Katie Lee's brother worked at the cemetery. Papa floated beside me, rolling his eyes. She's as slick as an eel, that one, he muttered. But look how she's got all of them eating out of her hands. Katie Lee sniffled, a small smile forming on her lips as she looked up with Seraphina with gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. Seraphina opened her eyes and smiled gently. The spirits are always guiding us and watching over us. Remember that and you will find peace. A long, satisfying sigh came out of Seraphina. The crowd murmured appreciatively. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Seraphina than met the eye, and whether she was a scam or truly believed what she was doing was right, she did have power over people that couldn't be ignored. And with Tavin's thinly veiled threats hanging in the air, I knew I had to keep my wits about me. There's something fishing going on here, Papa said, his tone serious. I can't get my noggin wrapped around what it is, but something is in the air. Papa lifted his chin and sniffed like a little puppy dog before he vanished. I kept my eyes on Seraphina, taking mental notes, her confidence, her theatrics, those stones that felt a little too calculated, a little too perfect. It was as if she knew exactly what she was doing, playing the crowd like a fiddle. And as the night wore on, Seraphina continued her readings, each one more dramatic than the last, each one believing and leading me to believe that she was not the real deal. Chapter 1, Grave as All Get Out.